You and your business are your best investment. That is actually one of the worst pieces of advice you can follow because a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to it end up broke. Starting with the getting your business off the ground stage. You hear so many stories about entrepreneurs who invested in themselves and their dreams to get past this point. It sounds really cool, but the reality is most entrepreneurs fail, and it's shattering. I had big dreams too, and I was willing to invest. But my top priority was that I didn't become a financial burden to my family while chasing those dreams. That does not mean that I didn't invest. In fact, I invested over $60,000 in myself to learn marketing, sales, and the skills I needed to build my first online business. But even though I invested a lot of money, I did it in a way that wasn't that risky because I worked my way up to a six-figure job first, and I did not leave that job, even though I wanted to, until my business was at six figures on its own. That means I invested everything I could into my business without risking my health or my future. I paid my bills first, and I also set aside money for my 401k in case, the business plans failed. The only exception was the last year before I left my job when my business was starting to build momentum and I wanted to be able to put even more money to grow it faster. At that point though, I figured even if the business doesn't work out, I will only have not contributed to my retirement for 1 or 2 years, and that I will be okay with. The idea of risk is very sexy, especially when you hear about all the risks that have paid off. But actual risk, in my opinion, is the least sexy thing in the world. Plus, you have to know yourself. Very few people work well with that type of burn the bridges mentality. It takes a very unique type of person to not let that get in their head. And I know I'm not that kind of person. That's why I kept my expenses low, stayed in the job I wanted to leave, and invested everything I could into my business to give it the best chance of success. And it's not about the exact amount. Everyone and every business is different. Plus, if you don't have as much to invest, you can invest more time as well. What it is about is investing at this stage in yourself to give yourself the best chance of success without risking your future. As your business gets off the ground, you go into the stage you hear about, where people say to invest all your money back into your business because it's your best asset. The funny thing is, nobody ever talks about what's supposed to happen after you do that. Now, there is some truth to this because the faster you want your business to grow, the more time and money you need to invest back into your business. But that means the less you get to take out for yourself. This is why even after I made my first million at 26, I stayed in a cockroach-infested apartment in the Bronx because it was cheap. It was subsidized by my husband's job because they paid him so little. And I wanted to be able to invest as much money as possible back into the business. The problem is that people tend to stay in this phase for too long. I definitely did. Then they burn out and have no money to show for it. It's a really common mistake that can have big consequences in the long run, like over a third of entrepreneurs not having a retirement savings plan. I think that's because a lot of entrepreneurs put all their money back into their business for too long, probably for the same reasons I did. One, I wanted to grow the business as quickly as possible, and I fell for that common unwisdom. But I didn't think about what happens after that, like how long I could mentally accept making those huge sacrifices. And two, this is a little embarrassing to admit, but I basically thought that I was gonna make it big and then one day be rich enough to not have to worry about it, which is again what common advice kind of leads you to think. After being in this phase for over 4 years, I grew the business, but it also left me feeling really frustrated. It was like, my business is making all this money, but I'm not getting to keep any of it, which kind of defeats the purpose. Around this time, thankfully, I found Tony Robbins' book, Money Master the Game. I'm flipping through it and find a section where Tony lists all of these people who went broke even after having made hundreds of millions of dollars. That's kind of unbelievable, right? But he uses those examples to get across that the exact thing I've been thinking, that if you just focus on making more and more money, someday you'll have so much money you won't have to worry about anything. That is a very bad plan. Apparently, you cannot out-earn not having a plan and knowing what to do with your money, even if you make hundreds of millions of dollars. That's the moment I knew I had to move out of this stage and come up with a better plan, because I didn't want to end up like his examples, working so hard and ending up with nothing. If I could go back in time and give myself advice in this stage, here's what I would say to invest in balancing both growth and your personal sanity. Remember that you are in this for the rest of your life. Some things can wait until tomorrow. You do not need to hit all your business goals today. If you are going to invest everything back in your business, give yourself a set timeline, like 1 or 2 years max, before you reevaluate how you want to continue investing to balance your growth and what we're going to talk about next. The only exception is if you're planning on selling your business. I actually think this is where common advice originates from, but it probably got morphed over time, because there is more urgency to pay yourself less and grow your business faster, because that will affect how much you can sell your business for. But that wasn't my situation, and it's not for most people. Which brings us to the third stage, where it's time to enjoy the fruits of your hard work. High five to that. In this stage, if you haven't done so yet, it's time to educate yourself on money, because as long as you stay on your business journey, you will eventually have more and more of it. The 2 books that made the biggest difference for me and that I always recommend are Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich. This book made such a big difference that I gifted it to my sister the day she graduated from college. And Tony Robbins' Money Master the Game. From that book, I learned one of the most important calculations of your life. It's a simple one that Tony teaches to calculate the net worth you need to live the lifestyle you want. Basically, how much does it cost to live your dream life each year? Multiply that number by 20, and that's the number he recommends you aim for by the time you retire. After I figured out my number, I pulled up a compound interest calculator, which you can find using Google. Then I played around with the numbers based on what I had already saved and where I needed to be by the time I was 65 to figure out how much I needed to start putting aside every month. But real talk real quick. It wasn't like it was so perfect and easy for me. The first time I looked at that number, I was not keeping enough profit in my business to be able to put that aside every month. It actually felt impossible. So I started with what I could and slowly worked my way up. I invest that money the way both books and a lot of investors like Warren Buffett recommend, in index funds. I set aside that money every month, put it in the index funds, and move on. I'm very safe and boring with my personal money. I don't spend a lot of time on it or overthink it, because I did the numbers and now I'm investing for my peace of mind. Just as importantly, this lets me put the rest of my revenue back into my business, because that's what makes me happy. Because I know that even if I take a bigger bet in my business and it falls through, I will still be okay. This gives me the courage to try new things, to grow my business, and to create the impact I know I'm meant to. But it all starts with growing your business. So I highly recommend checking out my video on how to make your first million online. It'll show you the simplest and fastest way to hit 7 figures in your business.